Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkal alayh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa nashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. We're continuing with the stories of Rumi for young adults from the Masnavi. And we had a break, so I hope you all had a wonderful Eid and you did good things with your family and you enjoyed yourselves. Tonight we have two stories and they're very nice stories. And as usual, Rumi stories are filled with wisdom and they're very much stories of our time. And even though they were written many, many years ago, many hundreds of years ago, but as we see from the stories that human character and human nature does not change. And so these stories are very relevant in our times. And even though our societies may change and communities may change, times are different, but essentially, because human nature is the same, these stories are very much relevant for us. And we also want to say that, that for the young people, these stories are important because stories are a way to transmit ideas and a way to retain ideas in our minds too. Because when we remember a story, then we're able to think about the deeper elements of that story. And one of the ways to remember a story is to tell that story to somebody else. So to transmit that story to another person is a good way to remember a story. So I'm going to start the first story, which is it's called The Two Slaves. And it says, in those days when male and female slaves were bought and sold, a rich man ordered his steward to buy two young male slaves from the slave market. So the two were bought, one for 100 dirhams and the other for 20. So this is set in a time when slavery, and as you know, that throughout history, slavery was very common. It's as common as humans have lived on this earth. And I know it's a very emotive subject, and but this story is set in that time. So when and this is a history that it might even be worth studying, because when you study the history of slavery and how it was practiced in different cultures and different times, then you'll see also the disparities between people and why they had these systems in place. Like many cultures had these systems in place for a reason, and some of them were actually beneficial for society. Not all of them, most of them weren't, but some of them. And this is very deep, but it's something that if you're interested in this subject, then you should look into it and you should study it in more depth. But anyway, this story is set in a time when slavery was common, and so a rich man, he ordered his steward, and a steward is somebody who takes care of the household. So he ordered him to go and buy two young male slaves from the slave market. The two were bought, and one was for 100 dirhams and the other for 20. Now, when the slaves were brought to their new master's house, he summoned one of them. He was a handsome, fair youth. Upon entering, he greeted his master and stood respectfully with his hand on his breast. His master asked him his name, and he said, Jamal, he replied, which means handsomeness. Bravo, what a beautiful name you have, exclaimed his master. You yourself are indeed very handsome. He asked about some other things and found the young man intelligent, well-spoken, and polite. Whatever he was asked, he answered promptly and courteously. The master was very pleased with his purchase and commented, "You were bought for 100 dirhams, but you are worth 1,000. After that he called for the other slave. This one was not handsome and had no apparent qualities. He was a short, downcast, and dejected youth. He saluted his owner and sat on a stool in front of him. "What is your name?" asked the master. "Kemal," he answered. "There is no such name as Kemal," said the master. Jamal began to laugh at the other slave's pronunciation. "He means to say that his name is Kamal, but his accent is like that." "All right," said the master. He posed a few more questions to Kamal and listened to his answers. He saw that Kamal was also intelligent and not without common sense. Then he sent Jamal out and said to Kamal, "It's obvious that you have a sound mind, but your teeth are in bad condition and you have bad breath. Sit back a little and don't talk too much until I send you to a physician for treatment." After that, the master had Jamal sent to the bath so that the young man could wash off the dirt of travel. The master then remained alone with the second slave so that he could test his character and bearing some more. "I've heard that you two work together in the same house. So tell me, Kamal, why were you sold?" Said Kamal, "I don't know. One day the master ordered us to be sold. Perhaps he had found some better servants, or perhaps he didn't have enough work for us. People don't tell us their secrets. They don't trust us because we are slaves. Anyway, it doesn't make any difference to us." Were your living conditions there good?" the master asked. "Were you pleased with your master?" "Pleased," said the slave. "What can I say? So long as a man isn't free, he is not content. Anyway, we were living as everyone lives. We worked, we ate our bread and passed time. Our master himself was not idle. We all worked." "Tell me," said the master, "is what Jamal said about you true?" Kamal looked at his master in surprise, but said, "I don't believe that my fellow worker would lie about me, because I've never done him any wrong. Whatever he said is certainly true." "But," continued the master, "in my opinion you are a very valuable young man. From the very beginning I knew that you were trustworthy. But he said that you were very envious. He said that you were disloyal. He said that you were nosy and an informer. That's what he said." "If Jamal said such things," shrugged Kamal, "then they must be true. I don't know about being envious, but I do hope to make progress in life. I think about people who are more popular and liked than I am. Perhaps that could be called envy. I don't know about being disloyal, but if somebody wants me to help him betray our employer, I won't cooperate with him. Perhaps that is called disloyalty. I don't know about being nosy and an informer, but if someone sends me on an errand, I do it as thoroughly as possible. I learn as much as I can and then bring the information back. I also give my own opinion. Perhaps that could be called nosiness and informing. And it's possible that Jamal didn't lie. No one knows his own deficiencies, and I don't either. Perhaps that was what Jamal meant. Right, I'm going to pause here and let's look at these two boys who have come into the employment of this master, and they are called Jamal and Kamal. And Kamal has been sent off to the bath to clean himself up because they've come for a dusty journey. And the master is now testing Kamal, and he's a very clever master because he's asking him all these questions, and these questions are meant to test him. Now, Kamal is intelligent and he understands that this is a test for him, right? He doesn't fall into the trap. So this shows us, this very first thing shows us Kamal's level of intelligence. And so Kamal also understands another thing, that he has to tell the truth. And so this is showing his character. And every time he's asked a question, he knows that it could work for him or against him. So he has to be careful how he answers the question. Or he decides to, what does he decide to do? He decides to tell the truth. And let's see how much the truth is going to serve him. And even though the questions are quite tricky, because he's saying that the master says, well, your friend said this and this and this about you, Kamal is very clever because he says, what he said, it could be true because it can be interpreted like this as well, and it could be interpreted like that. And so he's answering the question in a very diplomatic manner. Now, said the master, so that I can trust you and speak openly with you, I want you to tell me about every fault that you have noticed in Jamal. That way I'll know how to deal with him. I haven't noticed any faults in him, said Kamal. Jamal is a cheerful and polite young man. In every place he is better regarded than I am. His price is 100 dirhams and mine is 20. I think he has good qualities that all can see, and for that reason his value is several times mine. Good and bad can never be concealed. SubhanAllah, look at how he answers that question. He says, when he's asked about uh, what Jamal is like, what his personality is like, he answers, he only tells him the very positive things. Because I'm sure, because they've lived together for so long, that Jamal must also have some irritating or some qualities that Kamal doesn't like. But he doesn't know this man and he doesn't want to tell him. And besides, he considers Jamal his friend. So he only tells him his positive qualities. And we learn from this that it's a very important lesson that if we are asked about somebody as a reference, then we should give an honest opinion about that person, and depending on what it's for. But if you know that this person is just asking, then say the positive things. And even if you know something that is negative, and like I said, depending on what it's for, if you know something negative, then you should say that, I don't know that much more, but maybe you can ask somebody else, or maybe you should look um, into it a bit more, right? So you're saying that there is more to discover, but you do not want to disclose it, right? So this is a way that you can answer. Like, for example, if you know that if you don't disclose this person's quality, like bad quality, and it could get this person, the person who's asking you, into a lot of trouble, then you should point them in a direction where they can find that information, because you might be putting them in danger. However, if it doesn't if it doesn't really concern you and it doesn't concern that person, then you should just answer with the positive qualities, what you know. And you can say like this, that I have experienced this person in this way. Every time I've met this person, I've had a positive experience, and and that's all you have to say. And this is also true. Another point here is when somebody comes and backbites about another person in front of you, and you might know that person too, and that person is coming and backbiting, saying bad things about that person. So one of in the hadith we learn that you should defend that person's honor. That means you know that whatever they're telling you is not true, or it's none of your business, or you don't want to know. So you should say it like this, that every time I've met this person, I've had a good experience and I've only heard good things about this person, and this doesn't concern me, so let's talk about something else. Right? So this is the way you don't fall into the backbiting, because many times people, because the hadith obviously, and even in the Quran, it's told that you can't backbite other people, and it's such a bad thing. Many times people ask this question, but okay, we don't backbite, but what if somebody backbites in front of us? Then we also are party to it. You're an equal party to it. So this is the way how to diffuse that conversation. that don't say bad things about other people and don't hear bad things about other person. Defend that person and say, you know, I've never had a bad experience like this. Or, you know, let's talk about something else. It's not my business, so I don't want to talk about that. And remember, this might not make you popular. A lot of people won't say this because they might think, well, you know, this person is only trying to be friendly and they're trying to make friends and they're trying to talk. Um, but remember this, that if you are, if you don't disclose it, like if you don't show your good character at that point, and this is honesty, in saying that you are being honest. So this is a part of your character. So if you don't disclose that character, then you have become a party. Number one, you become a party to that backbiting. Number two, you are also not to be trusted because you are backbiting too. A person who backbites about another, remember, they will backbite about you as well, right? Just as easily they came to you and talked about somebody else, very easily they can go to another and talk about you. So at that time, you have to set the standard, and it takes courage to do this, right? And it won't make you popular, but it will make you trusted. People will trust you, right? And then you have to ask that question: do you want to be popular, or do you want to be trusted? And our theme today is about that. We've got two stories, and that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the difference between a good character and being popular, right? Trying to be popular, and it's a very important theme because in our time today, everybody is trying to be popular. You know, there's this personality syndrome because a lot of our lives are lived out on the social media. There's everybody thinks they have to create this personality and they have to show what they like. And basically, in general media, it's like that. It's not just on social media, but in general society has become like this, that we have to recreate ourselves. We have to brand ourselves and recreate and show show a type of what we are. And we might not really be like that, but this is a public persona that we have to create, or we think we have to create. This is what common society, a larger society teaches us. It's a common thing that people do. But the question here is, do we as Muslims have to follow that, right? And is it the right thing to do that we create an artificial or a fudged persona to show other people that we're not really like that, right? So our theme is in these two stories that we're going to read today is like that. So going back to the story, when Kamal is asked about Jamal's character, this is the way he answers. He says, Jamal is a cheerful and polite young man. In every place, he is better regarded than I am. His price is 100 dirhams and mine is 20. I think he has good qualities that all can see, and for that reason his value is several times mine. Good and bad can never be concealed. Look at that answer. And this answer, even though it looks like he's putting himself down, and he is basically, he is lowering himself by giving this answer. But in reality, he has just elevated himself in the other person's eyes, right? Because what does the master say? He says, very well, said the master. Now that you have come here, are you happy here? Do you think this place is better than your last or not? My duty is to work and serve, Kamal said. It doesn't make any difference where I work because I am a slave and in bondage and I'm not free. I can never be happy. But that is God's command and my fate. I've just arrived here today, and I don't know whether this place is better or not. With the passage of time, I'll get to know you better, and you'll get to know me better. I don't know what else to say now. I always try to do the work given to me and do it well. So all of his answers are pointing to the fact that he's a really sensible person, and he's humble, right? And he's also very realistic. Because look at his answer. He says, my duty is to work and serve. It doesn't make any difference where I work because I am a slave and in bondage. So he's realistic and he's accepting of his fate. Now, this is also a very important quality because if we take parallels with this story, with our being the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? We are all Abd and Amatullah, means we are servants of Allah, we slaves of Allah. Abdullah means a slave of Allah. So when we are slaves and servants of Allah, look at how our attitude should be, that it doesn't make a difference where Allah puts us. Yes, because we're always fighting with this in this world, isn't it? I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be here. I want to have this. It should be like this. Why did this happen? These are all questions that we all question about our fate. And yet, if we are a servant, a slave, we would accept what Allah has decreed for us. So he says, what does Kamal say? He says, it doesn't make any difference where I work. So he's very realistic about his situation and very accepting of it. Because he says, I am a slave and in bondage and I'm not free. And I can never be happy. Right? He's saying, because of his fate in this world as a slave, he's saying I can't be happy. But that is God's command and my fate. So it's a very humble acceptance of where God has put him. And this in itself will give him this acceptance will, even though he's saying he can't be happy, it will give him an inner joy because he's accepted who he is and how he has to live. And there's a very big wisdom in it for us, that if we accept who we are, right? We accept everything about us, the way Allah made us, the way we look, the way we are, what how our life has been so far, what we have been through, what our path is, where we're going, right? The personal qualities that we have, the personal qualities we don't have, what we wish we had but we don't have, what we wish we had and we can get, what we wish we had and we can never get, right? These are all things that are our fate and what Allah has given to us in our wisdom. And so, if we can be accepting of that, then we can find an inner peace and serenity. We can find a place where we can be okay. And to find that place where you're okay is very, very important. So, we're learning this from Kamal in this story. So he says, he also says, I've just arrived here today and I don't know whether this place is better or not. So he's very realistic because he's saying that, I've just come and with the passage of time, I'll know you better, you'll know me better. So I don't know what else to say right now. So his answer is very precise and succinct. He's just saying, this is what I know right now. I always try to do the work given to me and do it well. So this is the answer that he gives. And from his questions, um, in his heart, the master praised Kamal's decency and honesty. So from this, we can see that Kamal was his inner core, his character, because this is what the master was testing. He was testing his character, right? So he says that he is decent and an honest person. Back to the story. At that moment, Jamal returned from the bath. The master sent Kamal with an old man to the doctor and then began to test Jamal some more. He began asking the same questions. I've heard, said the master, that the two of you worked in the same house. So why were you sold? It wasn't my fault, answered Jamal. Kamal was so lazy and talked back so much that the owner took to disliking me too because I was with him. He said that since we were living together, he would sell us together, but I think he may have found some other slaves better than we were. Uh-oh, that's not good, because the master is now testing Jamal, and in the first in the first question, he slipped up, because when he asked him that why were you sold, he's going on the defensive. Instead of saying what Kamal said, Kamal says, I don't know, right? We don't know. The master may have his secrets and they don't share it with us. He was very honest. But Jamal he's gone on the defensive and he's making an excuse and he's blaming Kamal, which is not a good thing, right? When we try to put other people in a bad light, we're only putting ourselves in a bad light. You always have to remember that. When we shine a bad light, right, an evil light on somebody else, that light is really shining on us. Yes, that's something to remember. That's something, there's a wisdom in that. That if we're talking about bad about other people, really it's saying something about ourselves. Yes, because it's only those people who have very low self esteem and they don't think much about themselves and they're constantly trying to put other people down so that they can look good and they can look good in their own minds. Yeah. So there's a very deep problem inside that person who's talking about others because they're putting other people down to make themselves look more glorified, right, or better. So we have to think about this, that when we shine a bad light on another person, really that light is shining on us. It's really a reflection of ourselves. And so in the first question, he slipped up because he's saying bad things about his friend, right? And he's blaming him for being sold. So the master, he asks another question. He says, how were you living? How were your living conditions there? Were you happy with your master? No, sir. What kind of a life did we have? We worked like dogs and still he found fault with us. A couple of times, Kamal said that we should steal his money and run away, but I told him that would be wrong. Anyway, the master's unfairness did its work and he sold us and good riddance. Tell me, is that what your fellow worker Kamal says about you true? So this is the third question now. No, sir. Kamal is so wicked that he's always saying bad things about me. You can see from his appearance that he's no good. With that awkward physique, how dare he find fault with me? It's good that he doesn't look like a human being. His outside tells you what his heart is like. You can never believe anything that ugly boy says. Well, said the master, in my opinion, you are a fortunate young man. From the very first, I understood that you were not a bad person. But Kamal says that you're very envious. He said that you were very disloyal. He said that you were nosy and an informer. He said all those things. Now this is a trick question, right? This is he got the first he got the straightforward questions, and now this is a trick question. Let's see how Jamal does in this. Look, sir, said Jamal, when I say that Kamal is malicious, you can know from that. It's Kamal who can't stand to see me better off than himself. His envy has made him ugly. It is Kamal too who is disloyal and slanders me at that every opportunity. Kamal is a nosy talker and tattler who will come to you bearing tales and to lie about me. In fact, if I told you everything about him that I know, you wouldn't want to keep him for an hour. So what are the bad things that Jamal is saying? Let's just have a look at these. He's saying that he's envious, right? And he is disloyal and he's nosy, right? These are bad qualities, aren't they? And disloyal means that he's one thing with his friend and he'll go behind his back and do something else. And he slanders, that means he talks bad about other people. He's nosy, that means he likes to know about other people's business and he likes to hear gossip and he likes to spread gossip and he's a tattletale, and this is something else. This is not a good quality, that you go back and tell tales, right? If you go back and tell tales and lie about other people, then this is going to make you very, very untrustworthy, right? So he's saying all these bad things about his friend. And imagine these two boys, maybe they grew up together and they've been in service together for so long. But look at how each is observing the other and how they're talking about each one in front of another person, right? So then he says, instead, you'd sell him off for half his price. The thieving brat has no shame. How dare he say such things about me? Good, said the master. Now, so that I can trust you and speak frankly with you, I want you to tell me all of Kamal's faults that you have observed so that I may decide how I shall deal with him. What can I say, said Jamal. If you want to hear my opinion, Kamal is nothing but trouble. He can't speak properly, and he doesn't even know his own name. He says Kemal. He doesn't know how to do anything except talk back and complain about everything. Tomorrow, if you send him on an errand, he will tell everyone he meets that his master is this way and that way. The only part of him that works is his tongue. Let's move on, said the master. Tell me now that you have come here, are you happy? Do you think this place is better than your last place or not? What a question, sir, exclaimed Jamal. Of course I am happy. There is no comparison between you and my former master. You are a perfect lord and superior to all others. I used to see your image in my dreams, and now that I've come here, all my hopes and dreams have been fulfilled. Oh, how I was suffering at the hands of my former master. I know that this place will be very much better. What is Jamal doing here? He is using what we call flattery. He's trying to flatter his master. That's another not good quality. Right? To flatter somebody is to say things in front of them to make them happy, which are not necessarily true. Right? And that's to score some points. So that's not a good quality either. And this is also, unfortunately, very common in modern society too, that we use these kind of traits, that we flatter other people in front of their faces. In fact, in the hadith, it tells us that we shouldn't even praise people on their face, right? Because it can spoil their good deeds. So say very good things behind that person's back. Never say bad things, but always praise them behind their back, right? That's a very important quality. And so this is now the master has finished his interview, and look at how cleverly this interview has been done. Now, when you go to for an interview here um, in, in a modern society, they're not very worried about character. They're more worried about your personality and what you put out in the world. But that's also a fallacy. That's not also not a good thing, because if you bring somebody in with a character, with a good character, that person will be very loyal to your company. That person will always have good traits. But unfortunately, we are losing, because we're becoming more and more and more superficial. We're losing those qualities. But there is a comeback. There are people, this movement of going more holistic and living a more holistic lifestyle and being real and being more organic, etc., etc. There is a comeback of having looking at people with a good character. So this is something Islam has always taught us, and even from a young age, like from your family background, this is what you've been taught. All of us have been taught. Our parents taught us this, especially our mothers. They always instilled in us good character, that you must be honest and truthful and loyal and steadfast and all of these good qualities. And but along the way society teaches us, we sometimes lose those things. And that's what we're discussing today. Very good, said the master. I know everything I need to know. Now go outside and wait until Kamal comes back, and I will give you my instructions. After Kamal had returned, the master called them both to him and said, I've examined both of you, Kamal. Kamal, you have no fault except that your living conditions were not good, and you fell sick, causing you to have bad breath. I shall have you treated, and you will always stay with me. So look at how good this master is too. He's a kind master. So it's not true that all masters are evil. There's good and bad in all levels of society, good and bad people everywhere. So he says, both you, Jamal, you have become conceited, but you, Jamal, you have become conceited because of your outer appearance, and you think everyone is like yourself, superficial. There is an old saying, the external beauty is nothing, O brother. Bring me the beauty of character. And this, unfortunately, superficial is a good way of describing our present present culture, especially the social media that we interact with, is very, very superficial, because it's all about showing a good face. It's not just social media, even cultures. It's all about showing how good you are, how rich you are, how noble you are. But this is all very, very superficial, and Allah doesn't look at that. Allah looks at the character which is inside our hearts. And so the Master continued, because Kamal had good intentions, I would not be unfair about his fellow worker, even in his absence. Uh, he would not be. I trust him. From this moment on, you, Jamal, must work under his supervision. Instead of manners and flattery, learn diligence and cooperation from Kamal. Then we shall see what happens. You must obey everything Kamal says. So, can you see what the master did? Because he tested their characters, he found out which was the stronger character, which happened to be Kamal, and he put Jamal under the leadership of Kamal. So you can see that at the end of the day, good character always wins. Right? It always wins, and it will something that will carry you through life. It is something that will um, serve you very well in life. So behind the master's house there was a garden. It was Kamal and Jamal's job to dig a channel in it for irrigation. From the very first day, Jamal sat down after an hour or so and said, I'm tired. I can't do this kind of work. We certainly have fallen into the hands of a cruel master. Why don't we do the work poorly so that he can get exasperated and sell us? We might get a better master next time. No, dear Jamal, Kamal said. Don't be unhappy. I'll work harder and make up what you can't do. The master won't find out. Be patient and everything will turn out all right. How do we know we won't get a worse master? Yes, said Jamal. You say that now, but when you were alone, you said so many bad things about me that he put you in charge. No, dear friend, said Kamal. Don't think that. If you want to know what I said, I'm ready to repeat everything the master and I said. So Kamal related the master's questions and his own answers. Then he said, Now you tell me what you said about me. When Jamal realized that the master had said exactly the same thing to both of them, he said, I can't tell you. When the master told me that you had said bad things about me, I believed him. I tried to make myself appear in a better light to him. But now I know that what he was saying was a test, and I failed the test. And now you are talking. You are taking on yourself my burden. For this reason, I confess that you have the right to superiority over me. Right. So now things are cleared up between Kamal and Jamal, and the truth has come out. And I want to ask the question: which which one of these two would you like to have as a friend? Would you like to have Kamal as your friend, or would you like to have Jamal as your friend? If you went on a journey, which one would you like to take with you, Kamal or Jamal? And I think the answer is pretty obvious. So this it's a very deep thing. This that when we choose our friends and we choose the people to interact, and we don't always choose them, right? We don't choose our family, for example. We don't always choose our neighbors. But if we were to choose, then we should choose people for their character. We should always choose to people for their character, and also we should be the character, the good character that we would like to see in another person. So if you are the travel mate, for example, you must demonstrate that good character. So things remained thus until the master decided to go on a journey. Since he had not forgotten the two slaves, he sold Jamal for 200 dirhams, and he couldn't find a buyer for Kamal. So the master set him free for the pleasure of God. Then he adopted him as his son, and they went on the trip together like a father and a son. MashaAllah. And this story ends very happily for Kamal. So you can see that your character can shape your destiny as well. Because when people have a good experience with you and they see you for your good character, they trust you, and they see, because people will very quickly see through a personality. And like um, if you're trying to be popular, or you're motivated by uh, the environment that you're in. right? You're motivated by how you should look and how you should speak and what traits you should show to other people. So that's called a personality. So if you are motivated by this, and this is not always consistent because you're always changing, right? You have to change with the times and the people that you're with. So, for example, if you're trying to project a personality where you have to sit with rich people in a certain way and show them that you too are rich, and you have come from a rich background, and you talk in a certain way and dress in a certain way to show that, then and you don't like poor people, for example, and you don't want to sit with them or be seen with them because you're too good for that, then that's going to show through because that's very shallow. If you have a good, balanced character and you don't care whether the person is rich or poor, you treat them on a human level and you treat them nobly, no matter who that person is or where they've come from, what their background is, then you will be respected for that. People will see through that and they will respect you for it. So, character, a good character, is very important and much more important than being a personality, right? And creating a personality because people can see through how the personalities because they kind of fake, aren't they? You're trying to make an image and you have to portray an image and you brand yourself and you're trying to show this image, but if that's not really you, then it's fake and people will be able to see through that. So, what are some good qualities for a good character? So, first of all, it's honesty, being very honest. Right? This is very important. And being honest to yourself, that's the first thing. If you want to be honest to other people, you have to be honest to yourself. Right? A lot of these things, for a good character, you have to give them to yourself first. Then you can give it to other people. If you can't give it to yourself, and you can't be fair to yourself, you can't be honest to yourself, then you don't have it to give to others. You must remember that. That's a very important thing that we've said. Inshallah, in future halaqas, we can explore that further. Then, what's another good quality of a good character is being courageous, right? Being bold enough, courageous enough to speak the truth, to stand up for the truth, to be fair to others. Having integrity, that means whether somebody is looking at you or they're not, you will do the right thing. That's a very important quality as well. That you have this, you have integrity. You don't have to show other people, and you don't have to be seen to be doing good. In fact, you prefer that you do good things privately, so that it's between you and Allah. You don't want that people have to see you and they have to praise you and they have to like you and put likes in your Facebook. You don't want all that, right? Also, respectful. You're respectful to other people. You take responsibility and you are able to fulfill responsibility. You're caring to others. You're respectful and caring and fair to others. And these are all um, some of the most important qualities of a good character. There's others as well, but we can look into that. Whereas a personality is that you project yourself onto others. You're trying to show other people according to the times, according to the environment that you're in. That's why you'll see people who are trying this personality. You'll see them in different settings. They're acting differently. Yeah, so you might see them in a family, they might act very differently. When they're outside with certain people, they act very differently. When they're with their friends, they act differently. And they like chameleon because they're always changing colors. So that's not what Islam tells us. Islam teaches us, the Prophet taught us the core of our character has to be true. We have to be a people who have a good character. And wherever you take that good character, it will shine. So may Allah give us a good character, inshallah. So that was one of our stories. And the second one, right? So this is about the false friend. So long time ago, there was a time when the Jews and the Christians were enemies. There was a city in which the Jews outnumbered the Christians, and that city had a tyrannical ruler. This ruler saw that his advantage lay in displaying himself as a zealous Jew. The people too were oppressing the Christians, and every day a number of the Christians were seized and tortured on the pretext of heresy. Nonetheless, the number of Christians increased day by day. The ruler had an evil vizier who was very shrewd and devious. He was also very zealous and would say that every person must become a Jew and no one should be a Christian. One day the vizier said to the ruler, "It's not enough just to show open hostility to the Christians as you do. First, the people hide their beliefs, and then when the people see your oppression, they become Christians because people always love the oppressed and despise the oppressor. If we want to eliminate the Christians, we must adopt a better plan and have a strategy." For example, what? Asked the ruler. Right, so this is about, um, it's called the false friend, and you're going to learn a lot of things in this. I'm going to read the story, and I want you to think about what lessons are coming out of this. So, first of all, the king has a vizier who's very sharp, but he's not a good person. So that's something to think about. The people that we take advice from, the people that influence us, and the people that we hang around with, are they uh, are they good for us, and are they giving us good advice, and is it going to be beneficial for us? That's a very important thing for us to think about. So the vizier says, "I have a good plan. In order to spread my poison among them and eradicate them, I am ready to sacrifice myself and suffer for a while, but you must implement my plan while keeping it secret." "The truth is," the ruler said, "I want to be more powerful than anyone else, and I want to rule the world. I'll do whatever you say. Now tell me your plan." "This is the way to do it," said the vizier. "Order that I be seized and whipped in the public square. My feet will be beaten, bloody and bruised, and be dragged to the foot of the gallows, where you will say, 'Since this vizier has become a Christian and has left the religion of his parents, we must hang him as a warning to others.' You will, you will have secretly commanded one of the lords to come forth as an arbitrator at that moment. He will intercede on my behalf and save me from the gallows, and you will say, 'Now that things are thus, I will expel this treacherous vizier from the city.' The news will spread throughout the city that the vizier has been thrown out of the city as a warning to others because he has become a Christian. Then I shall take refuge in the country of the Christians and cry out, 'What a time and period we live in! No one has the right to choose his own religion. They won't let people worship God as their hearts tell them to.' When the Christians are certain that I am a Christian sharing their beliefs, they will come to trust me. Then I shall take care of the rest. I'll create a turmoil among the Christians that will have no end. There is no calamity worse than sedition and disagreement. When they are disputing and fighting among themselves, they'll be weakened. After I've executed my scheme, I'll flee, and we will become stronger than all." "A good plan," exclaimed the ruler. "If you can tear out the roots, then the branches and leaves of the Christians will wither in our country too. Good fortune will be mine. But can you do all this by yourself?" "Destruction," smiled the vizier, "is always easier than construction. I will plant the sapling of enmity among them, and light the fire of contention. They will fall upon each other's throats. They will finish the job themselves, and I won't be alone." Right, I'm going to pause here, and I want you to look at the next part of the story of how the vizier is going to cause this destruction, and how he's going to light the fire. And uh, we call them in society, there are people like that who are called gaslighters. They light fires, little fires, right? And they cause fires. So there are people who do this, and it's very important to be able to see this. They do this to cause fights amongst people. to cause destruction, to destroy people. And unfortunately, this is a human trait that is quite common. It's been common throughout the ages. But if you are innocent and you don't really look at what people are doing, you can become a victim of this. It's very easy to become a victim of this because what they will do is they'll pick up your weaknesses and they will play on that weakness and they will gaslight, they will do something to cause a fight, right? And people do this all the time. So it's important for us to learn this and how people do it and to observe what people are doing. You have to observe and what they're saying and how they're saying it and how that's going to incite something in another person's heart. I know this is like deep psychology, but it's worth learning it because it will save you can save yourself, your family, even your whole community from a bad thing if you know how to deal with it. So it says, excellent, said the ruler. What could be better? May the God of Moses reward you. And look at the strategies that this vizier is going to use. Listen to them carefully. So the next day, the ruler commanded that the fanatical Jew be seized because he had left his religion and become a Christian. He was beaten and tied up and brought to the foot of the gallows. Someone came and interceded for his life as he had arranged. Then he was driven out of the city, and everyone said that the vizier had left the religion of his father and mother and become a Christian. He's become an unbeliever, the people shouted. Down with the traitorous vizier. All this was done. The vizier was beaten and injured and fled to the Christians. As they had already heard about what had happened to him, they greeted him and honored him. The deceitful vizier denounced the Jewish ruler constantly. He even said, I've been a Christian for years, and the ruler finally became aware of it. He drove me out with insults and disgrace. If Lord Jesus had not protected my soul, that Jewish ruler would surely have killed me. So the first thing that they do is that they lie. Like these people, what they will do is that they will lie and they are very good actors. So they'll make a big show and they will do a big drama, right? Recognize drama when you see it, people. So he thanked God profusely that the Christians had given him refuge. The Christians, who knew that he had been the Jewish ruler's vizier, said, this man has gone to the door of death and returned for the beliefs and faith which we have. Now we must honor and respect him. So these are good Christian people that he went to. They were good, simple people, innocent people. And so when they saw this big drama, they didn't think anything of it. They thought it was real, right? So um, in the Quran it says this, subhanallah, the Quran is so beautiful. It says, when a people come to you, then test them. It says that when something like this happens and you're unsure, then test that situation. Subhanallah. So the vizier began to attract the people around him and discuss Christianity with them. Since he was widely read and had a lot of knowledge and was a smooth talker to boot, most of the people gradually became his disciples and would tell others about his marvelous words. That's another thing, that he was leading them into deception with clever words. So again, this is human. You have to look beyond what people are saying. Little by little it came to pass that there was no speaker among the Christians more famous than he. Even the ruler of the Christian country believed in him. The Christian theologians chose him as their leader and gave him the right to issue orders and decrees. They called him the regent of Jesus. So he worked his way through his deception. He worked his way to the top of society. And this has happened before in real life. It's happened many, many times in history, that people like this who have been deceptive, they have destroyed whole societies and whole nations. It was said everywhere that the light of Jesus shone forth from the forehead of this regent of Jesus, and his tongue spoke the truth. He had contact with the heavenly angels, and he even met with Jesus himself one night, a week in the fourth heaven. Such stories arise among the common people when they become disciples, and the people believe them. During this period, and most of the Christians believed the vizier's speech was revelation from God, the Jewish ruler wrote him a letter in which he said, "Don't forget your agreement and promise." The vizier wrote in reply, "Don't worry, I finished my preparations and I'll light the fire very soon." So there's another thing that we learn here, that before the actual gas lighting, the fire lighting, a lot of preparation goes into it, right? So people who do this kind of thing, they will prepare people for the grand finale. So they will work sometimes for years and years and years. They work on other people, and then they will do what they have to do. The vizier wrote in reply, "Don't worry, I've finished my preparations and I'll light the fire very soon." In those days, the Christians were divided into 12 sects, and each of them had a leader whom his followers obeyed. These 12 religious leaders were also devoted to the regent of Jesus, because they had come to have great faith in his knowledge, virtue, and abstinence. They obeyed his orders as they would have obeyed the orders of Jesus himself. Now that the enemy, in the guise of a friend, had firmly laid the foundations of his plan, he secretly ordered a stonecutter to make 12 stone tablets. The vizier had devised 12 sets of rules of conduct and religious law, none of which agreed with another, and then ordered a stonecutter to inscribe each set upon a stone. On one was written, "It is the command of God that mankind become monks and leave the world. They must worship night and day and leave the world's work to the worldly while they meditate upon the last day." On another was written, "God has no need of prayer, wailing, and worship. Mankind must eat at the dining cloth of the world and drink and be happy. God created all these blessings for the enjoyment of the people, and He will forgive them their sins of the last day." On another was written, "If someone strikes you on one cheek, offer him the other, so that he may strike it. God will settle accounts on the day of resurrection and send the wrongdoer to hell. Violence is bad, but the punishment for it is up to God. Enduring threats and violence is virtuous, and God will compensate for it." And still another was written, "Now that human beings have understanding, they must themselves make the laws by which they live according to their own desires. God does not interfere in the affairs of mankind. They are fortunate who either by counsel or force cause others to adhere to them. Each person must seize his own rights with his own hands." So as you can see, the advice is contradicting each other. And you know what this is going to do. In short, the 12 stone tablets were prepared, each one with a set of commandments contradicting the others. Then he invited the 12 leaders who were rulers in separate sections of the community to come to him one by one. He gave each one of the tablets secretly so that others might not know about it, and said to him, "In order that the commandments of God may be implemented exactly, I have had them inscribed upon this stone so that no one will be able to alter them. Since you are the greatest among the 12 leaders and the most beloved, I am entrusting it to you so that you can guide the people along the right and true path. Do not show this stone to anyone except the most trustworthy of your sect." So the 12 leaders departed, and each one adopted a set of rules according to the commandments on the stone he had received. He taught them as God's law to his disciples. Things reached a point in which the followers of each of the 12 leaders began to consider the other heretics and sins, and thus the seeds of dispute and public turmoil were sown among them. Whenever there was a disagreement, the leaders would come to the regent of Jesus and seek his counsel. He would calm them with excuses and say, "Only God knows what is right for the people. Each person must act according to the commandment which has been given to him." So you can see he's causing so much unrest among the people, because everybody has their own version of the religion now, and they're fighting with each other. Does this sound familiar? Right? If only they could have sat down and looked at each other and said, "Well, we're just talking a different language. Oh, this person has deceived us." Right? So then one day he summoned all 12 of the leaders, and he said, "I must travel to heaven so that Christianity may remain on earth. I must appoint one of you 12 leaders as my deputy, and that one person is you." So he's telling each one of them secretly that he is a deputy and that he has to go to heaven. So the deception has gone to another level now. And you might think, the story is funny and how would people fall into this trap? But you'd be amazed that people do fall into these kind of traps. Whole societies fall into these kind of deceptions. And one of the important things that we didn't mention earlier is that there is nothing secret in religion. If somebody says this is a secret part of religion or this is a secret element, then you should run far away. Because in our religion, there is nothing secret. There's nothing that you cannot talk about or discuss with other people. And so then he had sown the seeds of conflict. He returned to the Jewish ruler and said, "Now I've planted the seeds that will bear fruit for many years to come. There is no longer any need for your force and your being blamed. The Christians will destroy themselves by themselves." Can you see what these people do? They make you destroy yourselves by yourselves. That means they use you. They put seeds of discord. And this has happened in society everywhere. You should read history and you'll see this happening all the time. That the shaitan uses this ploy so frequently, right? And so it happened that afterwards, each of the 12 Christian leaders thought them himself to be the only true leader, and they would not accept the others as their equals. And so it just so happened that one of the Christians who was serving in the court of the Jewish ruler and had kept his religion secret learned of the secret plan. He informed the Christian ruler, who in turn summoned the great men and elders and the 12 religious leaders to his court. When they had assembled, he said to them, "God is one, and the law of God should be one too. You who are squabbling among yourselves must show the proofs and sources of your ideas." One by one, the leaders of the 12 sects said, "We have an inscribed stone. It's secret, and no one else may look at it." Said the ruler, "Nobody can accept such a thing. Anybody taught in secret is heresy. The truth is that which even an opponent can consider and weigh in his mind. People have heads and can recognize the truth. We must compare these stone tablets with each other. If they are in agreement, we must investigate other sources for the differences amongst you. If they are not, then we must find a solution. No prophet has ever had a secret book or law or commandment. Only bad things are concealed. Whatever is good should be in the open. So they had to produce the stone tablets and compare them. Everyone saw that the regent of Jesus had been an enemy trickster in the guise of a friend. So as they all agreed that the law of God must be the same for all mankind, when they saw the differences among the commandments, the scales fell from their eyes. They made peace with each other, and their disputes vanished. During this time, news arrived that both the Jewish ruler and his fanatical vizier had been removed from power. A more just Jewish king was on the throne, and the Christian ruler and the new Jewish ruler exchanged letters, and they agreed not to be enemies. They invited their peoples to peace and happiness and proclaimed in writing to Jesus his religion and to Moses his religion. And the final thing we'll say in this story is that no one has the right to impose their beliefs on others. That's what we learned from the story. And religion is for the comfort of mankind, not for their oppression. And it's for building. Religion is for building, not for tearing things down. And whoever creates destruction and differences among people is a sinner before God. So Allah sees everything, and if somebody is gaslighting and doing these kind of things and lighting fires, then Allah sees it and they will pay for it. And um, having respect for other people's beliefs. So as long as a person does not trouble others, his beliefs are to be respected. And because these two kings, they reached an agreement of peace, and they both sealed it and signed it, and they posted it on the walls of every city, and the people busied themselves with their work and their lives in peace and cooperation. And that shows us the value of a good leader. If we have good leaders, then we will have good societies, and we will have good families and good individuals. And so today's stories are very valuable stories, and we want to thank Sheikh Rumi, rahimahullah. We pray for him that he left us such good stories that we can learn good things from. So have a good week, and inshallah we'll see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. ورحمة الله وبركاته.